So today we're going to talk about government. Now, why government? Why government? Oh my gosh, who's this guy talking about government? Because government is mind control. Govern the mind. Control the mind, okay? So that's what it is, and I'm not stressing upon it. It's just the fact. Look at what they're doing. They believe they have a higher power over you and your humanity. So why is it that government is denaturing in its nature? Why is it that it's violating nature? Is because everything they do is therefore a direct violation of nature if it's man's law and not natural law. And this is a big issue. But what I'm here to talk about is natural law in relationship to man's law, and moreover just nature versus man. For the longest time in the world's history, man has won against nature, right? It's man against animals, man against the whole wilderness out there, and trying to create their own living, supposedly, right? I didn't live at that time, but my ancestors did. So my ancestors live within me, and so do you. So then you have where we built tools, where we built an empire. We start building up, and we have this was what we have now. It's like these cities, which are majorly complex, very, very tall, way up tall, can create lots of dangers if something goes wrong. A lot of pollutants happen in the past that is now being controlled. I mean, more controlled. Funny, I say control, right? Because in order to make something more peaceful, more orderly, you need to have more control, is what they believe, right? So, if something's going wrong, pass a law. If something's going wrong, make this, right? Make something that's new, that's never been created in nature, because the answers are not there. This is their belief system that has people believing, and that's called statism. Statism is the world's biggest religion, to which they believe in government. Now, the reason why I'm speaking about this in the health field is because government plays a big role in health. I mean, they really interact with each other, because look at how much money our country spends on healthcare in relationship to our political realm. It's incredible. And then you have these big pharmaceutical companies who are lobbying the politicians, just like this, a handshake, right? But instead of a handshake, now they're just sending it online. Now it's like, here's $1 million. I'll support your campaign. And you notice that they'll never criticize Big Pharma on TV. And by Big Pharma, I mean the pharmaceutical complex, that being even agribusinesses like Monsanto, DuPont, Syngenta, BASF, and Bayer, which, Bayer comes from IG Farben in Nazi Germany, and they created the Zyklon B gas there. Monsanto had slave labor down there. I mean, crazy stuff. Came over using Operation Paperclip. Many different histories that have not been foretold have came out into light. Something to just look into, even if it's not entirely true. It's something to look into, because it does exist. It is a very common theory that has a lot of evidence backing it. So I'm always about trying to expand the mind here, and what government is constantly doing, which I need to point out, saying government, I can't even point to it and say this is who it is, because it just doesn't exist. It's more of an illusion. We just believing in it is what creates its power. So we're literally feeding the system that we believe in. And so often it's like, if there's an issue, people are bowing down like, please, oh government lords, help me. I need help, And so even when it comes to health, their own very health, their own very living, they will compromise that and say, here, government, give me the solutions. And so for me, that's a big red flag. So a lot of other people not talking about it, it's going to be a big issue for me. And I'm not afraid to talk about that, or open my mind to different topics and open this conversation which needs to be told, right? Because who in the health field is going to come out against the people that are also funding them? Sorry, I had to take a cut there. I'll be honest. I mean, I have family, right? So I'm not going to ignore them when they have upon my request, because again, I'm real, and this is the issue, right? It's because you have all these people, and yeah, look at this. This is coffee from a local place, but we have people who want to control us and get rid of local companies, who want to get rid of families. Why do I know this is Georgia Guidestones? Why do I know this? Because of their writings. people who are at the very top, people who are hidden. You think the leaders of the world would actually show their face in public? Not going to happen. So what was I talking about? I was talking about how the media is being controlled by the pharmaceutical complex. I was talking about how the pharmaceutical complex and the agribusiness complex are connected and how they're being funded by the government institutions. So if that can't be mentioned in the health field, then we're going to have a big problem getting out of this situation. Because if you actually want to cure health and not use this as a business model, which is what it is, because they profit on disease, it's a sick care model rather than health care. And that's exactly what Obamacare did as well. If you want to really talk about things and question the world around you, you don't have to believe me. And that's the issue, is because they want you to believe every single little thing. And then they'll say, no, you don't have to, you're a civil citizen and that's fine. And then some people will defend them and say, oh, well, that's okay, we just got to get reform on government. But the problem is the very, very nature of government is to control you and have a higher position over your human life, which is more superhuman, subhuman than you, right? Which is not existent in our universe. They presume this control over you that you are giving to them, so therefore, it's voluntary, right? It's voluntary, but not if you're a child in this world and you're growing up thinking that these people have the natural right to rule over you. Right? And so there is natural leadership, and it's something that we need to talk about. How people come into power, what is power, and how does that relate with natural law? Because none of that stuff is talked about in school, whether you're in civics class, whether you're in this class or whatever. And so, especially in the health field. And so, although we spend so much money in the health field, we don't talk about that influence and how they're the governments who are often keeping the natural cures away from the public, and how they're also the ones that, again, are promoting bigger businesses, bigger farms, kicking out the smaller farms, which everyone used to have their own family farm. I mean, do we remember that? Do we see just some simple history text in books? I mean, just connecting the dots a little bit can teach us a lot about our world. And a lot of people see this as they get older, and my generation waking up to the nonsense, which is what it is, for this whole matter. So then you have all these people who are saying trendy soy lattes and Starbucks, right, as healthy food items. And that's not necessarily true, but they'll cave into everything, right? I mean, you see the very same organic companies are also companies owned by the conventional companies. So who do you trust, right? And so it always does come back down to government, but it often comes down to the faulty belief system. So is it actually government, or is it the belief system? Well, I told you government's an illusion, so it's more so the belief system. Now, why is this connected to health? Because health is often a belief system. If, let's say, you're saying this is trendy, this is so trendy, I need to do it, it's a belief system. You're stuck in it, you're saying, I need this now, and this is what you're going toward. Now, some people need a belief system for faith. Everybody usually needs some sort of belief system, and it's because we're usually hardwired to believe in these sort of things and have something to always believe in. The problem is where we put our belief in the wrong places, and power goes to the wrong people, and that's the issue, is they didn't gain that power naturally. And the cycle naturally tumbles down on themselves, but if they build a whole empire based around denaturing, it will fit their agenda over time, right? Let's say their presumed power is denatured in its nature, and then they build cities and they build these laws and structures that literally restructure all of society and fabricate a gigantic claim upon all of humanity with this big scheme that doesn't exist within nature and has developed over just I guess you could say demonic, because that's how evil it sometimes gets, psychopathic, for just people to want always war, to control and gain more control, and then use purposeful wars and false flags attacks, right, to get their agendas done. And people do fun things like this. And again, it's from politicians who are connected to pharmaceutical companies. And then you see all these shootings on TV, and you see this happening and this happening, and these people are on drugs. And again, the drug companies won't take responsibilities, and nor is it questioned on TV. It never is, because their sponsors are drug companies. So connecting everything to health, we often see that politics is right there, but yet everybody in the medicine realm that I see isn't often talking about it or the root cause. They say, I want reform, but it doesn't fix the underlying issue. So that's my belief on this belief system that we have currently. And certainly, to me, it's like a whole entire denatured realm that we built for ourselves. And that's why it thrives on feeding itself, not only its fiat paper currency, but its technology that is denatured in its nature. Like I said, is denatured in its nature because it's not the fruits of your labor. It's being a robot as much as possible and being obedient. And then you have the medicine, the drugs, where they just match the pill to the ill, and they say, here, this is your drug because you have this symptom, or here, this, you had to take this drug because my authority said this is what to do, and this is what the paper says what to do, so this must be the truth, right? So there's not much learning based in ancient nutrition, ancient learning that our ancestors have fought hundreds of thousands of years supposedly to gain, and we're just losing it now because we have this system in place that seeks to compromise all that in its nature, is what I'm saying. It's in its nature. So when I say nature is the answer, it's a much bigger definition. And for me, government is a big problem that is majorly not talked about, and I will have to connect the dots a lot more on this channel so you can learn more about what I mean by this. But generally, everything comes down to self-responsibility. It always does, and people just don't want to take that responsibility because oftentimes they're incompetent, or oftentimes they're just straight out ignorant. And I will say that no matter what, because that's often the case. Now, you may say someone's helpless or whatnot, but you can give them the strength and say they're not helpless. Now, maybe they are slightly helpless. In the slightest, they may always be, to some degree. But in the slightest degree, they're also very strong. Everything's very ironic in nature, and that's how they use it, because everything is an inversion for their nature. Their nature is this corrupted form that they've developed and now feeds itself. So what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to just sit around and not express my feelings about this when I see straight out there everywhere I go forms of life that people have consumed and integrated within their life, because they believe it's life, that it gives them life? And I'm talking, of course, about processed foods, processed people, processed teachers, processed everything. That's what I mean by denatured, right? Something that's not real, something that you can't say, oh, this is government. Again, it's not real. It's an illusion. So that's my thoughts on it. I would like to hear your thoughts on it, and we can open this conversation to even more. I could even provide more factual bases on this, but I mean, do we need that to show what is simply present and observational? Because for some people, I could see it's hard to grasp upon if you've been in this way of thinking perhaps all your life. So I have high hopes for this generation if you're someone who is on YouTube a lot and looking at videos like this, because the truth does need to get out there, and every voice does count. So that's why I'm out here. Thank you very much for watching, and see you later.